Welcome, 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 everybody, to episode 5 of the Step One podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. In the Step One podcast, we are here to help you take your first step or your next step in business and in life. And today, I got a special friend of mine, a top sales and insurance killer in the world, Rodrigo Carrara.
Wow, you said it right.
Thanks. How did I roll those R's? Was that pretty good?
You did good.
Amazing, amazing. Well, look, we're going to deep dive into his background, his story, and a couple awesome principles and values that he lives by in his life. I know I've learned a lot from him from the times that we've spent together, and I want you guys to learn the same. So a couple quick things before we jump in for everyone listening here today. Listen, knowledge without implementation is just entertainment. So make sure you guys not only take notes, but you take massive levels of action with everything that you plan on doing with today's information. Prepare some questions, guys. When you guys have questions, comment down below, put it in the chat for all the people that are in the Zoom. Make sure you comment and put your questions there. I want to make sure that we make this as purposeful as possible for everyone listening. And if you don't write down your questions, if you don't submit your questions, we're never going to be able to get to them. So make sure you leave it to the end because we're going to do some live Q&A. And obviously, last but not least, please invite and share this with people who you feel like will need it. And other than that, let's get right into the introduction of my guest. Listen, Rod here has been in the insurance world for quite some time. We're going to learn a little bit more about his story recently. But Rod, you were telling me a little bit more about your story, how you got into a multitude of different spaces before the insurance world. So I want to dive into that as well. And also you have some special information that you're going to be changing people's lives a little bit later on, which I want to dive into.
With insurance.
With insurance, multiple different ways. Well, I love it, man. So look, without further ado, Rodrigo, please dive in. I want to hear your story. I want to rewind the clocks a little bit. Before you became this powerhouse in the insurance world, rewind the clocks to like when you were back in middle school, back in high school. I want to know, who was the Rod back in the day?
So that's good. Thank you for the introduction. Making me feel so cool. I came to this country when I was 4 years old, and basically the way it started for me was typical immigrant from South America, Colombia. I didn't know my dad because he came to the U.S. to basically do the American dream, right? This is what this is about. And I remember vividly, too, for some reason, there's certain memories that stick with you when you're a child. And I remember when I flew out for the first time from Colombia to the USA and basically meet my father. That was like a pivotal moment for me. I remember when I get to the airport and then an airplane lands, I get out, all these people are there, and this guy picks me up, right? And I look at him because obviously I'm so tiny, and I'm like, "Are you my daddy?" And then everybody starts laughing. They're like, "No, he's your uncle." I didn't even know who my dad was, right? Like, I'm just like, okay.
Wow.
And then fast forward the next day, I'm playing baseball with my cousin. Apparently, my dad was working the night shift, right? And all of a sudden, my cousin goes, "Hey, that's your dad up the street." I said, "No." And I didn't want to get like, fool me once, right? Not twice. But I'm like, "No." He's like, "No, that's your dad." So I remember vividly. So it was my brother and I was 4, he was 5. And like, I looked at him up the street and I just ran to him. I dropped what I was doing. My brother dropped what he was, and we just ran to him. And he dropped his bag. I'm like, I remember this. And he picks us both up, you know, two of us just like jumping on him. And then I looked at him in the eyes and I'm like, "Are you my real dad?" And then he looked at me and laughed. He's like, "I'm your real dad." Right. So that was like my moment that I'm like, this is awesome. This is, quote unquote, my dad came here to the US to do the American dream, to live that world that you want, you know, the house with the white picket fence, and like just trying to make it, because basically when he had me, he was, I don't know, 18. He was very young.
Wow.
And then obviously I had a brother too. So he was just trying to make it as much as he can and try to start that life. So fast forward, I mean, I lived in very humble beginnings per se, right? I lived in, you know, some rough neighborhoods per se. And one of the things that taught me was, well, the beauty of life was my mom was just this very sweet and loving lady. And my dad was this very like stern, serious guy, but he was just all about hard work. And as time went on and things progressed, I remember the first time, I think when I was like 10, we got into this like apartment complex, right? And I was so used to living in like New York, and everything's like the concrete jungle over there, and everything's all like, you know, like the hallways smell like piss, like it didn't smell too good. And I remember walking around that and just being around that. And then I was like, you know what? This is interesting. Moving from here, now we moved to Jersey, and all of a sudden I see grass on the lawn. And I mean, we're moving into an apartment building, right? It's 2-bedroom, and my brother and I sharing space. Like, my sister's about to be born, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, he's so rich. I see grass, you know, on basically in the lawn. I never experienced that. I thought that was so cool. I'm like, you're making it, Dad.
I love that.
But that was the first time we experienced, or at least I experienced, that like growth, right? Like, we're moving somewhere. We're moving in the right direction. And that to me was important, because that's showing progress. That's showing that you could work hard. I mean, he worked. Let me tell you, that's something that he definitely taught me, was hard work and dedication. And as I got older, you know, fast forward more, right? Kind of giving you some background so you can understand this. As I got older, I just, you know, he bought a house. And I'm like, oh, now I'm like the man, right? I'm like, we're moving on up. I was a teenager. He buys this house, and I'm helping him like build like the attic out, because he was going to make a space for my brother and I, you know, set up the lawn. I mean, I thought we were like the coolest shit ever, right?
I
like,
love
we
it.
were just like, we just got a house. Like, this is cool. This is when you stepped in, right? You could have sold us a house then, but probably you were 12. I don't know. So we're here, and he's doing what he has to do. He's working for this company, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm like about to be my senior year in high school, he loses his job, just like that. It was an interesting moment, because he was making really good money. You know, we were settled in this house. We're all in. I'm like looking at colleges, all this stuff. And he loses his job. I was like, well, what does this mean? So I see my mother crying. I see like my dad upset, trying to do something, because now he doesn't feel as like he's progressing in life. And then everything changed. That's the first time in my life that I actually saw a change in, like, we have to sell the house. This American dream, what's going on with this? I thought we were headed in the right direction. I thought everything was good. And that's one of the reasons that like changed my thought. Like, that was a pivotal thought process for me, in terms of like seeing my mother cry, seeing my dad upset. I mean, he was really upset, because he's like this like masculine dude, right? Like this, I got this kind of thing. And when that happened, and he couldn't really find a job that would basically pay what he used to get paid before, that changed our lives altogether.
Sure.
So that was a really important part of my life, because then I got to see like, wait. Someone else controlled his destiny.
Yeah.
Someone else controlled what he made. Someone else controlled everything about his life. So therefore, that gave me such an impact, because I never would ever want to see my future being put in that position with my family, where all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you're let go and have a nice day, you know, go Giants. Bye. We'll give you a pat on the back or a kick on the way out.
Yeah. Wow.
So to me, that was so pivotal, because I hated when they were selling the house. I hated that process. I hated everything, because I saw this
step back now.
This step back that was so hurtful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no way would I ever deal with that. So the focus was really, when I was in college, that I'm just going to be so determined to just finish school, finish college, and just like get out and just like do my own thing, right? Like, just figure out a career or something where I could do it on my own and build, maybe have the right strategies, maybe have the right mentors. I don't know, but I'm like, I'm not dealing with that same shit he dealt with.
Sure.
Because I would never want my family to deal with that, or my kids, or anything like that. I'm like, hell no, I'm going to do it on my own merit.
I love that.
So that's a little bit about my beginning.
No, I love that, man. And I think that a lot of people can relate in so many different ways. And I feel like when you come from humble beginnings,
Very humble.
when you come from humble beginnings like that, it shapes your future so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in the moment you don't know that, you know, realize that, and you only see it for your circumstances, and you only see it for the pain and the frustration and the struggle, and you don't realize how much that actually can elevate you and help you connect with people in the future, and how much that's going to help you in your future if you use that power, right? That emotional power that you've built up, that grit that you've built up, right?
That's
When you're
amazing.
young, and you use that now as power instead of pain, and you take that power and you create a beautiful life, which, I mean, you've done for yourself, which is amazing. You've turned, again, these humble beginnings, as an immigrant family, into, turning into what you have is amazing. And it's beautiful. And I commend you for that. And I want to talk more about I want to talk about now. It's like, you're in college, or you just got out of college. Why,
Yeah.
like, why business? Like, why sales? Like, why
I
does this
just
matter?
knew that, like, I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. And one of the things that I focus on personally, I was like, well, I know what I'm good at, but I also need to align myself with people who are really great at what they do. And I know if I focus on business, that at the end of the day, it's either if I fail my own merits, but if I succeed, I succeed because of me.
100%.
So when I got out of college, that was just to kind of appease the family and be like, okay, I did the college thing. Now I'm going to do my thing to figure this whole thing out.
Yeah.
And
Where'd you go to college?
Kane University.
Okay, cool.
So that's in New Jersey. So,
Did you
have some people here from international. I don't know.
That's right. So what did you study in college?
Finance and economics.
Finance and economics.
I came out with 2 degrees. That was like by like luck. It wasn't even
so, and then just to clarify, so like when you were going through everything, was it the plan? Like, did you know going into college, like, I'm going to go be a salesperson or a business person? Was that the plan?
Well, I wanted to go into, the plan was I'm going to be in finance. So I need to know numbers.
Smart.
Just in case I want to do something with business. I knew it was business. I just didn't know what it was.
I get that.
I knew it was something that I really wanted to go into. And I was just like, there's something that I'm always guided. Like, if I have this gut feeling, I tend to go with it.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying like some regular gut feel. I'm not talking about like a stock gut feel. I'm talking about life changing. Like, if this feels good, I go with it.
Got that.
So that's
I
what
love
felt
that.
good.
I like that. So, okay. So you're in Kane University, you're studying finance and economics.
Mm-hmm.
You got this gut feeling that you're chasing right now.
It was my gut. And it wasn't like I was hungry. So,
so now you graduate, where's the first place you go?
So when I graduated, I was like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to do in life. So I was getting interviewed at like all these places, mostly like Wall Street and just other like financial firms and all this stuff. And I'm like, and I saw that movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. And I love that movie. And I'm like, I could see me be that guy. Like, the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, I fell in love with how that movie was portrayed and how Will Smith did it. And that was actually based upon a true story. So I'm like, you know what? I'll probably get into the financial sector and go there and do the Wall Street thing and just be about the whole Wall Street life, I guess. And then I ran into this guy. His name was Bob. Right? I love a good Bob, right?
Love a good Bob.
And dude, he's just like Bob, a cool dude. And he was just a very successful man. He had this insurance company. He owned another one, and he sold his, I guess he was a partner there, and then he sold his shares there, and then just wanted to start all over. And I hit it off with this guy. He's in the insurance world, and basically what he does is a lot of business insurance. All right, that's what I do. And he just put me under his wing. I met him, and it was just like I was going from interview to interview, and I was like, I met Bob, and I'm like, this is a cool dude. Like, I could see myself like drinking a beer with him, right? So maybe a shot, because at the time I was like 22. But anyway, but at the end of the day, he was such a cool dude. He brought me in, and he didn't treat me like number 2074 or just some regular dude. He brought me in as somebody, right?
I love that.
And he taught me the ways. He was an attorney, but he was also, he grew up with insurance all his life. And that's how literally I got into insurance.
Just on a whim, luckily met Bob.
Yeah, I met Bob. And I was like, my gut felt good. Go with Bob. So that's just, there's no strategy. I mean, I was 22 or something like that, 23. And I was like.
So really, it sounds like to me that insurance was your first love.
I guess, I fell in love when I first saw her, right? So, but You know, she wasn't my type in the beginning, but then I got used to her.
You got used to it. So, okay. So you dive into the insurance world. How did the first year or two go? Like,
Oh
were
God. So,
stumbling and falling?
oh
Or?
yeah. It was, so I met Bob, and then Bob introduces me to this thing called the insurance world. And I remember when, you know, understand there's so much that you don't know when you get brought into something. You're like, wow, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know that was true. And you're like, but now you're getting brought into it, right? Kind of like in real estate, you don't know all these things until you get brought into it. Same thing with insurance, right?
Yep.
So I'm learning, and I'm learning by a really bright man. And then his partner, who was also an awesome guy. His name is Jim, right? So you got Bob and Jim. That's awesome. And then you got Rodrigo Carrara, right? So,
spicing things up.
So that was the best, right? Like, it's just the complete opposite. And
Sweet.
they both really brought me in and showed me a lot of the ropes. And one of the things I felt was just like a good, like with Bob, I had like a Bob and Dad thing. With Jim was like a brother thing. But it was awesome, right? But let me tell you, my first year was, oof. I got beat up a lot by clients because I didn't know, but I was never scared of trying, because that thought as a kid, 18 years old, graduating, my dad losing his job, and I'm like, hell no. So I made 20 million calls. I then figured out a strategy that I'm like, wait, why don't I just get people to work for me, to do stuff for me, right? Without me paying them.
What does that mean to you?
So let's say you find a person that you do really good for, right? And they love what you do. And all they do is refer you to 20 people. That's the person that I'm going to be so cool with. Not fake wise, like for real. But at the end of the day, you know that they're doing it for you.
Absolutely.
Like, why do I have to make 500 calls when that one person or 10 people could do my job for me, and we could have an awesome synergy?
Isn't it weird that people think that's like a convoluted, or that's impossible, or
Nah, man.
especially the beginning of your career, from what it sounds like, to think that way right off the bat is powerful.
Well, it was just a thought that I'm like, well, why not? This is a relationship business. Why not care about people that I work,
start making more relationships,
connections with,
exactly,
and relationships with, and do stuff with, and hang out with, and all of a sudden they become not only a good referral source, but a good friends. And
Absolutely.
I built some great friendships because of it. But it was real, right? It wasn't like I'm looking for you for dollar signs, because that's not what I do.
And that's so much of what business is, building beautiful relationships with a lot of incredible people in your life, and I feel like when you're just so focused on cold calling, you lose that touch.
Oh God, it's terrible. It's like, I don't mind it. It becomes fun after a while sometimes, but it's like,
no, it's a grind.
It's like, what do you want?
Yeah, and it's like people forget to realize where if you just focus on building relationships, life gets really easy.
No, it just becomes that much more. You're enhanced. You're growing. And in terms of, as my business started growing, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of growing pains in between. I'm not saying like, oh, I just started my first year and I was like some stud or whatever. I've learned, right? Just like anything, you learn how to walk before you run. And
so let's, I want to dive a little bit deeper now into the first couple years of your career, right? Like when did it really start clicking for you that like, this is meant for me? Because I feel like so many people, specifically younger entrepreneurs, they tried for 6 months or a year and then they just throw in the towel.
Drives me nuts.
Like they keep looking at like the grass is always greener. Maybe I should be in this business. And then they leave when they could have been something magical.
So I see that with young guys too, that go into the industry, and and this is just in general. I have a passion for people. I have a passion for helping. I have this energy and this vibe that I truly, truly want the success of others, right? The American dream for others, because I consider myself the American dream. And it doesn't matter if you were born in this country or not. And what I mean by that, I really want anybody that I'm connecting with to do well in their business, right? So I would ensure their business, and I would truly want their success, because it's also reciprocated. Because I know if I so deep in my heart want that person to succeed, so do I. So one of the things that I've always instilled in myself is, don't follow the money. The money will come. follow the help, like follow your passion to help others. Follow the process of saying, how can I do to make things better for you? What is it that you need? And it'll always come. If you always like sincerely, not BS, like I'm here to like get a sale. Like you could walk, when you need to walk away from a sale, you got to walk away because you're doing it the right way. And that to me is more important than anything. So my first couple of years when I knew, one, it was like that I have a never quit mentality, right? Two, I'm like, man, I get to hang out with people and like understand their lives and understand that they want to open some business. And this is like, they have their life savings into this and they need help as far as even from an insurance perspective, right? Like, and just talking to them and then understanding what they want. It just made me want to be more around people. It made me more want to understand the business, and it made me just stick it out. And I also think that a large portion of it is I didn't have a plan B. I never wanted a plan B. I never wanted to like, you know, it's okay to have a plan B, but I'm like, no. So my mother, I'll give you a quick story.
Go for it.
So my mother would call me, right? She has a cute little voice. She's like, mijo, right? For my Latinos out there, you know what I'm talking about. So she'd be like, mijo. So basically she'd be like, son, why are you here? Why don't you get a job, maybe almost a real job, quote unquote, in her mind.
Yep.
And like, because I was getting commissions, you know, this is how I make a living. And like, you have degrees, you have this wealth of, you speak English, you have all these things going for you. And in my mind, I knew what she meant. Like, son, get a job, work 9 to 5, feel good about that. There's nothing wrong with 9 to 5. But in my mind, I'm like, no, like, you don't believe that I could do this. You don't trust my ability for me to do this. So I'm going to do this all in, no plan B. And I'm going to do it in a manner where it's me that succeeds or me that fails. And there was only one way for me of succeeding. And if I have to work till 11 o'clock at night, I will. If I have to work 7 days a week, I will. But that was my grit to say, like, I'm not just going to stop here. You know, I believe that you only know one system, mother, which is a good system, but I believe there's many other systems of making financial wealth, right? More importantly, you're helping people along the way, right? And that's the part that she didn't understand till many years later, right? Like probably a good, I think I'm in the industry like 17, 18 years. Now she realized as to the why. Now she understands, you know, what's going on with my life, right? And that's something that I had, for some reason I had a vision and always saw, and just, it was hard at times. Wasn't easy, you know, either gaining an account, losing an account. The industry changing so much, so many laws and stuff, but it wasn't the industry that I was chasing. It was I guess the drive to just be successful, to know that I could do it. And it was mostly within me, and those young sales guys need to understand that you could do it. You just got to believe in yourself. That's such a cliche, right? Like, believe in yourself and you can achieve it. No, brother, like truly look at yourself in the mirror and say, I got me. Because at the end of the day, nobody got you, right? You could have family, they'll help you here and there, but they're not going to do what you do. Like, it's up to you to wake up in the morning. Exactly. It's up to you to brush your teeth. Like, it's up to you to do all those things. Nobody's going to do that for you. And those are the things that I started learning on my own. Like, I got me. And when I really saw myself in the mirror and say, I got me, like truly, truly went inward, I was like, I'm not turning back. And that, like, not giving up mentality.
So powerful.
Oh, bro, it changes a lot of things. Gives me a lot of, there's some days that you just want to throw in the towel and you're like, no, but this is what you need to go through, right? To learn, to understand.
Like, I feel like so many people, when they get into business, they use the word, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try it and see how it feels. I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a shot.
Can I cut you up right there? Yeah. You don't try to go to the bathroom, brother. Either you do or you don't.
You don't. Exactly.
That's it.
No, it's the truth. And so many people stop using the word try. Ugh. It's either you do or you don't. It's either I'm going to make this thing happen or you won't. I mean, like it's do or die. I mean, I can relate so much because it clicked with me when I had a business coach a few years back, and he said, like, listen, like the mindset that I had, that again, I just wanted to be rich. A lot of us just want to make a lot of money and, you know, be able to provide at a high level. But I kept saying to myself, oh, I'm just going to try this and see how it goes. And I would start business after business after business with the mindset of, I'm just going to try this and see how it goes. And guess what? It came and went. It went away, right? Because that business never thrived because I never gave it the time, energy, and effort that it deserved, the focus that it deserved, the determination and commitment that it deserved, until I recommitted back to real estate. And when I did, I said, this is it. I'm either going to make it or I'm going to die trying.
Yeah.
And when I made that final commitment, I mean, things exploded. And I think for so many of us right now, getting into a new career, getting into a new business, a new sales position, whatever the case may be, you need to make the freaking commitment now more than ever before that this is either you're going to make this happen or you're going to die trying. You're going to be the best that there ever has ever been, or you're going to die trying. Because when you make that commitment, not only to the world, but to yourself, most importantly, you will see a massive change in your life. So I know I love that so much. So I want to dive a little bit now you're starting to see some success. When for you, when was like that moment, and it doesn't have to be monetary, but like, was there a moment where you're like, wow, I'm doing this, like I'm kicking some butt here? When was that realization?
You know what, man? I'm so like,
and I know you're a humble dude.
Yeah, I'm like so humble. Like you don't like.
But I meant, like, was there that moment, like, listen, like when I finally made enough money to like be able to take care of my parents like I wanted to, or be able to,
even. So to answer your question, there's always a pivotal moment when you go like, oh shit, this is working. Right?
Yeah,
That's what I did. Like, oh my God, like this is actually working. There was a moment like that when maybe years ago when a long time ago, my dad had an opportunity to buy a business and I helped him finance the business. Right. And I'm like,
how'd that make you feel?
I felt more like honored because it was more like my mother could eat from that. My grandmother could eat from that because she lives in the same household. They live in Florida. And I was like, it felt so cool. Right. Like almost like, I got it. I'll write the check out. Right. And I'm like, oh my God. In my mind, I'm thinking like in front of my dad, I was like, cool as anything, cool as ice. But like in my mind, I was like a little schoolgirl jumping up and down, like, oh my God, this is like, I'm doing this. And it was, don't get me wrong. In the beginning, I was like negotiating and I'm like thinking I was cool, but it was that moment that it made me feel so that I'm giving back.
I love that.
To when they brought me here, to the time he picked me up and asked me, you're my dad, to the time that he has an opportunity to basically do the American dream, right? And I'm like, well, I got to do your insurance now too, obviously. So I'm sure your business.
That's for damn sure.
I got to do your insurance, buddy. But he partnered with somebody, and the point is like that was a good pivotal time, though, I could say.
I love that. So let's talk about some key principles that you live by in the sense of your sales career. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, like what do you feel like was a part, like what made you so freaking successful? I know we touched on like the relationship thing. You can touch on that again, but like what made you different than the rest?
Right. A market separator, right? Like what makes you so different, right? Is it
look, you're in an industry now for 17, 18 years. I mean, you've had a wildly successful career. Like why? Like
awesome.
There's
more room for growth though.
There's always room, baby. There's always room. But
I feel that I'm very sincere with people. Like I truly, like I said to you, I really, really deep down inside want their success. I truly feel that like I'm honored to work with people. It's not like, let's get a deal, let's close it, have a nice day. Like, and no matter how big or small the deal is, like I could speak to, so funny how I could speak to a truck driver, right? Who has this one truck that took his life savings just to start his company. Or I could speak with a guy who has a publicly traded company, right? It's just so different, the types of insurance that I do in terms of business insurance, but they both have such different needs, but they both have like the same element. They have a goal, they have a direction. And to me, that just being sincere, and super honest. That's my number one thing. Like I may not be perfect, things may happen, but as long as like my MO is always in a good place with people.
Come from a servant's heart.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, what can I do for you?
Exactly.
Not like, oh, you're calling me because
exactly
I'm great or whatever silly thing people
We
think.
like believe it or not, like in sales, we are serving
Yeah.
the
How
other
can I
person.
serve
How can I
you?
serve you is such a beautiful thing, a
But it's
beautiful way to say
sincere. I'm
that.
not gonna be like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, every 5 seconds. Like, what's up, man? Like I'm not, we're
Be
human.
genuine and authentic
Yeah,
about
I'm
it.
not gonna
Yeah,
be somebody else just because I'm trying to get a sale. I hate that. Like, don't sell
absolutely.
me. Like, talk to me like a human. Don't tell me because for you I'm getting your best deal. Just tell me how it is and talk to me like a human, and then that's when the interaction occurs. That's my thing that I go by.
I love that. So coming from, okay, so I want to make sure we get all this right. So coming from a servant's heart, I think that's a beautiful thing. Being super authentic and
Yeah.
genuine.
Right.
And then you said relationships before. I want to touch on that again, which is, I think people forget, and I, in the beginning of my career, I would forget that there's no reason not to ask for help and support from the people that love you and appreciate you and care about you in this world. I was just listening to a podcast last night. It was talking about how your income is a direct correlation. We've all heard that, that your income, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, but like your income is truly a direct correlation to your network, right? Your network is your net worth. But it was reiterating the sense of your income is a direct correlation to how many friends you have and how many, in their success levels, right? And so many people forget because they're just too busy cold calling or prospecting cold leads or emailing or DMing or whatever the case may be, and they're spending all this time, energy, and effort on things that if you just took that same energy and effort and time out of your life and focused it on building more relationships in friends, right? Because they can become friends. If you just take that energy and effort and do that, your life will explode.
I just had a funny story.
Good.
I'll tell you real quick. So one of my friends, buddies, right? Good man, just I remember this. Bought himself a house, right? And for some reason, his garden, he was having issues trying to grow the grass and the seeds, and I like gardening. It just calms me down, right? I go 100 miles an hour every day, and it's like that's like the one thing that's soothing for me. And then when he told me that, I'm like, now this is a buddy of mine who also refers me a lot of business, but at the same time, like I could tell, like he just had one baby, has another baby on the way, and I'm like, so one morning he wakes up, it was like a Saturday morning, and all of a sudden he hears noise outside. So he opens up and he sees me like putting seed in his lawn, like putting stuff like to make it grow, to get the grass. He comes out, he's like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, dude, you need grass for babies. Like, this is not for you, it's for babies. And then he started to laugh, and I'm like, it's no problem, brother. But like, we forget like to cultivate that relation. Like, I knew that there was something like, I mean, it at the end of the day, what does it mean? It just means that like, I care about the person enough to make sure, and that's how everything should be. Like, you care about the person enough to do what you need to do to make sure that they're happy, and you don't want anything in return.
Absolutely.
You got nice grass now. So at the
no, but like, again, like you're coming from a servant's heart. You're coming from the mentality of just how do I help you? How can I serve you?
Truly.
And I think it's a beautiful thing. And it's like, look, I mean, in general, to be blunt, relationships have changed my life forever. I wouldn't be the man that I am today without the people in my life. And all I care about now is loving on those people, appreciating those people, seeing how I can serve those people, but also attracting as many more as I possibly can into my life, because I know that attracting more people into my life will create more abundance. So, I appreciate you being in my life, like learning all this kind of stuff, it's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah, I'll give you a hug, but I have this stuff on.
It's same here. I got the table in the way. So a couple quick things, and we'll dive into some of these rapid fire questions that I have. So
rapid fire.
That's right. Whoa. That's right. So actually, I'm curious because I ask everybody this, COVID.
Yeah.
It rocked everybody's world. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, now we were just talking about it before, how like everything's just exploded, and we're, both of us are doing extremely well out of it. But when it first hit, I'm curious about like, where did your mindset go? How did you keep yourself focused through the dark times? Like,
I literally go into solution mode immediately. I don't go into problem mode. I go into solution mode.
Exactly.
Like I go into like, okay,
I just live in that mode.
Yeah. Like I if I go into like the world's going to end mode, then the world's going to end. Doesn't matter. So, but if I'm like, well, if I strategically position myself where I am being successful in whatever situation, like what's hot right now, what is like killing it, what is in terms of business, like, oh, tons of transportation is going on right now because all the other stores are closed. So I have to pivot and figure out ways. So then I leverage my Spanish, right, to Spanish speaking clients. So I'm like, let me figure out a way to get more of this type of clientele during that segment, right, because of what's going on. So for me, it was just like live in the solution. Don't ever, and one of the things about me is, I'll take a step back. I remember somebody asked me in my office, well, you're kind of a guy that likes to kind of high five, low five kind of guy, right? How did you pivot? I'm like, Zoom, everything's done electronically, e-signatures. I don't have to see you, but I could see you, and I want you to feel that energy on the phone. I have to change some things. So all I did was just like change a lot of the ways that I did things. And to be honest with you, that helps me out even more, because then I could allocate more time to more clients.
I feel that. So, and I look, I mean, for me, I mean, like, you know, in the real estate world, I mean, business stopped.
Yeah.
Like stopped, went to zero, you know, for a matter of, you know, 30 to 60 days. And that was a readjustment. And then you know, what I realized was cash is so freaking important. And I was sitting on just enough, and it freaked me out to now know that, like, I need to have a bigger cushion than I ever realized. Because again, I'm not just playing this game for Henry, which I know obviously, look, being 26, I think very, very long term. So, you know, I'm willing to make that extra investment and go a little bit more broke than normal, and, you know, live a little bit more on the edge, but realizing that, like, you really don't know the future.
No,
and like, look, when things are really, really good, you feel like you can take that extra risk and everything's, you know, there's just daisies and roses or whatever. I get that. But at the same time, you need to be ready for the whole world to shift in a different direction tomorrow. And having extra cash in the bank is crucial, just to make sure that you can weather those storms. Because now next time a storm comes, I'm going to be good. You know, like I'm more than prepared now. And the investments I'm making are strategically around that, where I feel protected. Like I'm building a better foundation for me. So with all that being said, I want to dive into the rapid fire questions. These are questions that I ask every single guest every single time. So Rodrigo, number one, if you had to restart today at absolute zero, no money in the bank, no connections, and you know, your business is at square one, same industry, doesn't matter. What would be your first 3 steps to rebuild what you've created?
Great question. I got to give a great answer. What would I do to rebuild it? I would change some of the things that I do now, but I would be all over social media. Like, I'm not really a social media person at all, but I would be all over it. You will see more content. You will see me go out to people in the streets, to just random things to kind of catch your attention, and then just kind of build from it, and then make those connections, network, and grow, right? That's kind of how I would do it. But I'd like to stand out. I would never do it like everybody else is doing, right?
So what would that mean?
In other words, like, insurance is like, I'm saving you money. But no, it's not about just saving you money. It's like, what are you getting with the saving of the money? Like, what do we got going on here? So you want to really be a market separator. So the first step I would do is, number one, have a plan in place. The first plan, it would be like, how can I get more viewers to come to me? Number one. Number two, is the message strong enough that people are really listening to me and really want to work with me, right? In other words, like, am I being sincere enough, good enough? And number three, figure out ways where there's a need, right? In other words, like, where there's a problem and how you can fix that problem. So I feel that there's a lot of underserved communities, right? It could be from a language perspective. It could be from, it could be many things. But for me, it's language, right? So I say, okay, so I do speak another language. Why not use that language and figure out ways to how to get more clients using that? So I'll target a market and just go after it that way a little more. That's what I would do.
I like that. So, and again, just to recap for everybody listening. So again, from what I heard you say is that you want to create a plan, about being a market separator. You want to
Right.
be different than the rest of your
Number one.
industry. And I think it obviously means a lot different things to a lot of different people depending on your industry. But
Yeah.
think about it. Like, a lot of people just say like, how can I help you buy a house or sell a house? I mean, like there's millions of realtors. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's just like you need to think differently outside the box. It's
Every
about
time.
what that does for somebody. I think that's powerful for you to say. And then create different segments. I like that you were saying that, target the demographic, that maybe most people aren't. You can become a market separator in a segment that, most people aren't touching because it might be a little bit more difficult or people don't want to go in that direction. I think that's powerful. All right, number 2. If today was your last day and you had this moment right here to give some advice to your kids, your wife, your future family, the people around you, what would that piece of advice be?
Today was my last day.
And you had this moment to give us some advice that you want to share
Just
to your kids.
like never stop smiling, never stop loving, always like enjoy every second of this world, because I get my motivation through that stuff. Like I went to a adult community one time and I talked to a lot of the older folks there, and they gave me some stories, man. And the stories were just like they could have done things differently. And so never have regret. In other words, do what you want to do. That would be my number one advice to my son. He's 2.5. He's awesome. His name is Mason, by the way.
I love that. Shout out to Mason.
I love Mason with my heart. I would say, no regret, and always go all in all the time. And then, then you have the story to tell, right? And it's a fun story.
I feel that.
Right. So that's what I would say.
You have to realize that it is a choice to half-ass and it is a choice to go all in. Make the choice, right? You will have you have the choice in every moment to make that differentiation.
But
so
you
I love
also
that.
choose when you not make a choice. You're making a choice, but not making a choice. Does
Agreed.
That make sense? Like
Yeah,
you just made a choice not to sit on the couch and
do nothing.
That was a big choice of yours. That's hard work right there.
No, it's agreed. Listen, making a choice or not making a choice is also a choice. All right, number 3.
Yeah.
What is one thing you would say to somebody struggling right now as a salesperson, as an entrepreneur, who's just trying to find their way, and you just need to give them, I wouldn't say some motivation, but just like a little bit of a piece of advice to let them know that it's going to be okay?
Yeah. So I'm all about like that mental strength, right? Like what happens is with sales guys, they get so discouraged so fast. You lose an account, you don't get the sale, people keep shutting those doors in your face, and then you start questioning yourself, right? I'm not pretty, I'm not smart, I'm not whatever the case may be. But you got to really dive into that's not who I am. These people, when I say these people could be a potential client, don't make you who you are. You make you who you are.
Exactly.
So the number one thing that I would tell any sales guy is believe in your process and never quit. They don't love you. They don't think any different of you. So be who you're supposed to be. In other words, be as transparent as possible. Talk to clients like they're real people. And like if you get 100 doors shut in your face, you might get the 101st door to open. Like that's been my motto. I've got a lot of doors shut in my face, and I've said some really nasty stuff by some people, and I've encountered some interesting situations. And sometimes the client apologizes afterwards and they're like, oh, sorry, I had a bad day. But they take it out on you. And what I do is I build like this, like I know who I am, I'm grounded enough, and I understand what I could bring to the table. And it's almost like this air of like, shame on you for you not working with me, right? Or at least trying to work with me. But if you do that as much as you can, then you will have this mentality of feeling strong mentally. And then you're not built into this like, I suck, I can't do this, I'm the worst. I could tell you 50 million things I could do bad, but I want to go into the stuff that I could do great, right? I may not be perfect. I make mistakes, but I know I'm pretty good at some things too, right? So I stick to that thought process. I never go into the throw your stuff in the gutter kind of mentality. I'm like, nah. Client didn't want to go with me for whatever reason, right? Whatever the case may be. And at the end of the day, maybe did I do something wrong? Maybe I could better my sales tactic. Maybe I could say something different. Maybe I could have positioned it a little better. So all I'm doing in my mind is just refining the process. So when I actually meet a client that wants to go with me, I refine it so much because I got so many no's, and I learn like, okay, last time the guy said no was because I didn't present this. And last time this other guy said no is because I didn't say that. So now I'm going to present that and say that and stay positive and focus and learn on the process. And then that's how you, quote unquote, build a business.
No, I love that. I mean, like guys, I mean, and girls out there, I mean, take a moment and just realize that like it is going to be okay.
Yep.
And it is going to take time. Like you're building a business.
Yeah.
This is not a sales job. You have to think about it as a business, and it's going to take time to create something beautiful.
You're not going to download it and get it in 2 seconds.
In 2 seconds,
you
exactly.
Get a song, you get a book. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it takes time. It would be wonderful if we could just download something. Like yeah, it wouldn't be, it would be, everyone in the world would be rich. So, all right, last one here for the rapid fire. What is one skill or habit that you have or that you're working on that you feel has been an absolute game changer in your business?
I am very open to speaking to as many types of cultures, types of religious people, whatever background you're from. I have opened my mind so broad to wherever you're from. In other words, it doesn't matter what color, ethnicity, wherever you're from, that is something that I've so opened my mind. So I have some really cool friends from all sorts of countries, and I've ate the most amazing foods from all sorts of countries. And all it is just like being open-minded to what they're doing. And then you get invited into the most beautiful places and you're like, okay. I got invited to California to meet some Babaji, which is like a saint, an Indian saint, right? Like I would have never got that, if I wasn't open to meet a certain type of culture. And then I meet another culture that would show me something interesting as well too. But the point is, it's like you got to be open-minded enough to meet new people and understand new things because you don't know where life is going to take you.
Yeah, and like, look, I mean, like, listen, realize that being confined to your current network that you have today, being confined to your room or your office is not going to do you any good.
No.
Stop being selfish and stop not sharing your gift because you all have a gift. And if you're not out there sharing more about who you are and meeting more people and sharing that gift that you have, I feel like you're robbing the world. And so many people deserve to hear your voice. So I want you to make sure you do that for me. So last but not least, just for some Q&A, these are just some questions that we've had other people ask here while on the live and on the Zoom. So a couple of things is just sort of, let's see, just getting started in the sales world. Just curious if there's any specific networking tips that you have.
Be yourself. Don't change for anybody else. People love you for you. As corny as that sounds, it's the best advice I could give anybody because people could smell the BS. And I quite frankly hate that. And so do other people. When you're real, they're like, this dude's not just trying to sell me. He's trying to get to like work with me.
I love that. What are you doing right now to expand your network, by the way?
Me?
Yeah. Selfish question for me.
The same things, the relationships with the people that I have, keep growing them. But I'm a little, call it gunslinger. Like flew out to Texas recently to meet this guy who has this awesome product. He wants me to insure his business. Like I would fly to California to meet some other, like I would go where the business is, right? And everybody's worried about a pandemic. I'm worried about like if I'm 20% up by now, that means I'm gonna be another 20% next year. So I'm just thinking more number wise because ultimately at the end of the day, I go get it. It doesn't matter where it is. I pick up the phone. I talk to clients that I've always had and I still give them the attention, right? It's important.
I think that's so powerful. And then actually, before going to a couple of these questions, you and I were talking about Tony Robbins, funny enough. I mean, we just had one of the top Tony Robbins coaches on the call, actually on the podcast last week. Yeah.
Was it cool, and
awesome. And
NLP and all that fun stuff.
We were talking about everything. And so one thing I wanted to ask you, because I know, do you still have a coach? No,
I don't have a coach now. I have mentors, right? I think that I always cling on people. What does Tony Robbins says? Success leaves clues.
Yep.
So follow the path to their success. So basically, I just have a lot of mentors and a lot of people that give me that strategic play, how to do things. And they ground me too, because sometimes I fly off the handle, right? Emotionally, I'm like, oh, this. And then I call one of my mentors, and they kind of bring me back to earth, and that's pretty cool. So you could say they're a coach, a very glorified coach.
Sure.
And I recommend a coach for anybody, right? But I always network with people and hang on them, just hang on them and ask them questions. And I have this thing, like, shut the fuck up and listen. And
That internal mentality.
Yeah, let them tell you things and understand. And but I love Tony Robbins, man. His stuff is awesome. And from that, I got to build other cool stuff. And I read a ton of books a week. I do a lot of Audible when I'm in the gym. Everybody thinks that I'm like listening to some like hardcore whatever.
You have a recent book that you liked, or 2 books you liked?
Actually, yeah. So the book that Matthew McConaughey, Green Light, I was like, no. Somebody was referring it to me. You gotta listen to it. I'm like, no. And I'm like, Matthew McConaughey, what inspirational thing. This guy's like, all right, an actor, But like this book was pretty good. And my other book that I recommend was The Third Door by Alex Benaya. Great book.
What'd you learn from that one?
That book sales guys should read like every day.
What was it called again? Sorry.
The third door.
The third door.
It's about people who, just real quick, it's about like there's 3 doors in this world, right? There's the first door where people are born into it, right? Like they're born into like very wealthy parents and they get everything. And then basically they're handed everything in a silver platter. And the second door is like the front door, but usually the front door, there's a line out the door all the way wrapped around the corner till you get in. The third door is like you get in through the back door. So in other words, like you knock on the kitchen door in the back, you go 10 steps up, you knock on 2 more doors just to get to the person you need to go to. It's the shortest door, but it takes more work. And that's the door people need to knock on as a salesperson. That book is awesome.
That's powerful to think about.
It's awesome.
It's funny because, again, guys, success leaves clues.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many of us try to overcomplicate what success can be or is. And I feel like, again, if you attract the right people into your life, success can be not only a lot more fun, but simple, easy.
Don't be scared to take that chance. Some people are like, oh my God, I'm going to meet the president of this company. I'm like, he puts his, pants on like you do. He may cry at times. He may be happy at times. He has the same. You're a human.
He's a human being and human being.
That's it.
Yeah, and take a step back and realize, like, look, again, they're just like you, or at least, like, they feel all the same emotions that you do. There's no reason to prop them up on this pedestal. All right. Well, look, last couple questions really fast, and then we're gonna wrap things up for you. What's next for Rod?
What's next for Rod?
Whoa,
man, that's a great question. So I really want to dive into there's a bigger purpose for all of us out there. So I'm really into giving back. So my business model is completely based upon if you have to give back $1, give back $1. Just understand how this works, right? I didn't understand how fulfilling this was. So I donate to a ton of charities, right? And one of the charities that the Make-A-Wish is an awesome charity. Railroad Underground is another awesome. They help kids. From sex trafficking to anywhere, they go around the world. Why can't I make it bigger? So what's next for Rod is a really massive charity that I could potentially combine all the charities that I like and kind of have them as a synergy to work together to essentially have that main cause that they want is helping people, whatever source they have in terms of like, let's say they want to help kids with cancer, or if you want to help these kids in another country, if you want to do other things. So like, why not build into more, right? So the next platform is literally the mission and the purpose and the goal, because when I die, I want to make sure like my son sees like, it's not just the financial.
Sure.
It can't be the financial.
Sure.
It will eventually be, but that's not what life's about, because I'm gone. I'm going to have nothing, right? That's it. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So why not have this big thumbprint on this earth and be like, I set up this massive charities to potentially pull them all together from a business perspective, and at the same time unify them all so all of them could do well and all these business could contribute to them. There's a way of doing that. Do I know the way yet? No, but eventually I'll figure it out.
I think that's so beautiful, guys. Like a life without, it's I forget what the exact terms of it, but like fulfillment is found in so many different ways. And I've found the most fulfillment. The secret to living is giving. That's the truth. And it's like,
how powerful it was to one day I was like, you know, you could give somebody money or you could give them food, and you have somebody that really needs food. And it was the most amazing thing watching these people eat. I know a guy was a very wealthy man. He had this like YouTube automation thing. And what he did is he said he felt so empty. He's like 29. I was like, how many Ferraris can I get? How many of this? Good looking guy, stud. And all of a sudden I'm like, have you ever donated? Have you ever give back to charity? So the next day he comes back to me, and literally the big dude and like jumps on me almost, and like picks me up in a bear hug. I'm like, what is going on? Like, who the hell is picking me up? And then he's like, you're right. I was like, about? And he goes, I saw a man that was really hungry, a homeless man. And I went to lunch and he was sitting there, and I bought extra food and I handed it to him. And then I walked away, and then I was in tears. I was like, why? Because it felt so good. Now, this is a man who had many Ferraris. This is a man who could basically get anything. And I was like, that's the part that we forget. So that's kind of what
The secret truly is giving.
really
You know,
is.
when you want to unlock true fulfillment and just really come from your deepest part of your heart and just giving your, not only, it could, listen guys, it could even just be your full attention in a conversation.
Yeah.
Right? It could just be a simple love note to your parents, your mom, your dad, the people around you. I mean, it doesn't have to be something crazy, but like going that extra mile to people around you.
It could be something as simple as so small as $1.
Agreed.
You know, honestly, like, why not give $1 to somebody? Or
how many times have you passed a homeless person or somebody on the side of the street who you knew who probably really needed it, and you just walked by? Listen, I've taken a lot of things away from this, but if you take nothing else away from this, learn how to give a little bit more of yourself to other people, because that is such a beautiful thing, and it will change your life forever.
Absolutely.
Well, look, I'm going to wrap things up for today, guys. Listen, thank you so much for listening to episode 5 of the Step One podcast. Rod, thank you for being on. I appreciate you, my friend. And we hope this episode gave you the ideas, the motivation, and the strategies you needed so that you can take your first step and or your next steps in business and in life. So go out there and crush it. Thank you so much, guys.